I want to talk about authority. And by authority, I mean, where do we look for direction in our life? Where do we look for decisions and how to live our lives, basically? I mean, there's a lot of different definitions of authority, but that's what I want to zoom in on. And my premise is that authority, we tend to look outside of ourselves for authority. Okay, and in our culture, authority kind of have is this a relational thing. You know, it's like who has authority between two different people, and then so relationships have degrees of authority. You know, and we learn this at a young age, right? I mean, we learn this ultimately from our parents, and then from other adults like teachers and coaches and various people later in life. It becomes bosses or supervisors. If it's sometimes in relationships, we make our significant other authority, or we make our friend authority, the leader. Even in grade school, there's usually there's the leaders, right, of the little cliques and packs, and so where do we look, to get direction for our lives? Is kind of the inquiry that I'm inviting in this video. The premise that I want to go with is perhaps we should consider making ourselves the authority. Okay, and then it becomes less relational. I guess it's still relational in that we're relating to ourselves, but it's less like giving the authority like the other person has authority. And then you may say, well, my boss does have authority over me. And yes, that may be true. But perhaps if you had your own authority, perhaps that could just be a role that you're playing. Perhaps that's just the appropriate role but you could still have authority over the way you live your life, and you could make suggestions to your boss, and then whether he or she decides to do them, but it still makes sense to me to consider becoming your own authority, becoming your own boss. Perhaps you that are entrepreneurs get this. It's like you'd rather work for yourself, and then then it changes. And not that everyone should do that. You don't have to work for yourself to do this. It's just a mindset. It's the way you see yourself and where you look to take action and where you look to get guidance and move through life. So anyway, I want to talk about three different dimensions of this tendency of authority. And the first is kind of power. Is like, where do we, like an authority figure is a place we give our power. We say they may be more important than we are. They have a higher rank. They're higher in the little caste system of life, or that they're my boss, or, whatever, or they may, and so then we look to them as like they are more powerful or important than I am. And so I'm going to show deference, which is maybe an unhealthy respect, if you will, to that power. And then I'm going to place the power outside of myself, which is always problematic, right? So our alternative is to bring the power back to ourselves. And we can still respect our boss or the person of wisdom or or whatever else, but we don't have to give them our power. Even, and they may not even want it. I know my teacher for years, he's like, don't give me your power. I don't want it. Now some bosses are not like that. They do like your power, but maybe significant others. Some want it, some don't. Some friends, parents, whatever. But I mean, my invitation is to inquire. It's like, who do I give my power to, or do I stand in my power and then act from there? The second dimension I want to call truth. It's like, where do we look to? Who has the truth? Is it our boss? Is it the wise one? Is it the leader in the field that has the truth? Is it the internet that has the truth? Is it research? Is it science? Is it God? Is it the Bible? Like who has the truth, and how do you find truth? When we give authority to things outside of ourselves, even if it's a spiritual teacher or God, even things that seem like they may be, good to have a spiritual practice, and good to have a job, and good to learn from a teacher, absolutely. But are we giving the authority of our truth and wisdom to them? Or do they just get to be someone that awakens truth in us? And then that we listen to the feedback, we listen to the teacher and the boss, and we listen to the wise people, we read the internet and the research, and then we bring it in, and then it's like, okay, now what is true for me? So it's finding my authority in truth, and I'm going to live according to my truth. It may be a general truth, or it may be the truth of what I need to do in this situation. It may be a decision that I need to make. So that's kind of, the second dimension. And the third dimension I want to talk about is responsibility. So if authority is outside of us, then often responsibility is outside of us. And this responsibility thing may be part of the payoff for us to give away our authority or our power. See, if I give my boss the power and I give her the truth, then it's kind of her responsibility if something goes wrong. If I bring that in and I'm going from my truth and my power, and I make a decision and it goes south, then it's like I have myself to look at. It's like, okay, that wasn't the best decision I made, but now I can learn from that. And so responsibility is a real subtle one. And it is good to be clear on what your responsibility is at work. And again, but this can get into more roles, right? It's like, yes, it's your boss's responsibility. I say to my boss sometimes at work, I work at the hospital still, and I'll just say, this is your call. This is above my pay grade. This is your call. My suggestion is you do this, but you need to sign off on that. So I still have my authority and I'm still responsible, but the roles dictate that it's her choice to make. And we can do that. And so now I become responsible to the suggestion I make to her. And then I let go of the outcome of what she does with it. That's her responsibility. But my responsibility is still to be in my role and then make suggestions, and to be in my role and to take action. And so those are just three different dimensions, of authority. And so my continued inquiry here is, so, who do you give authority to? Who or what where do you go for authority? Who or what do you give it to? Where do you go for authority? Is it something or someone outside of you? Or is it looking to yourself? And then so you can be in your power, in your truth, and in your responsibility, and ultimately in your integrity. Because that's the other thing, right? When we give authority away to other people, when we give our power and our truth away, we're no longer in our integrity. Because our integrity is living according to our own truth and standing in our own power and being our own authority. And so when we step outside of that, in a way, we step outside of our integrity, and then we, even whether we're aware of it or not, we lose a little bit of respect for ourselves. Okay, and then we become a little lower, and the authority becomes a little more, and then it gets more this difference in levels. And so my invitation is, just have this as an inquiry and see where you stand on authority. And that is my video for this week. So I hope you enjoy your week. Thanks so much for watching. And I hope you enjoy your week. And maybe this week, just consider, where do I look? who do I give my authority to? And where do I look to take action and move through life and get guidance? Do I look outside of myself? Do I look to myself? Where am I at with this? Anyway, I will see you in a week.